Well, it was all that I could do to keep from crying. Sometimes it seems so useless to remain.
Colors. Pull. Present. Arms.
We just praise you and worship you, and we thank you for a fine man, Lord, and we ask that you bless this community, this group, these veterans, and Lord, just be with us today as we celebrate life. In the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. A lot of you know my dad. Most of the people know him from the gun range or the EMS fire. I've known him since I was 13. They kind of dumped me on his front porch. Said, "Here's your dad," and I've been with him ever since. I have a book that I would love if everybody could sign, just give me your opinions or anything like that. I don't have a whole lot to say when it comes to this, but what I would like to do is see if there's a couple people who would like to tell us something about my dad that stands out to you, makes us laugh, or makes us cry.
Paul Delmas. I met him probably in the late 80s when he first moved out there where he lives in Spring Oaks Estates out there, when the roads had just been cut and there were dirt, and he was working on building his house. I moved away for a little while, and then our paths crossed again in 1988. I joined the volunteer fire department there. Paul was definitely committed to the fire department and EMS. It come from a different time than when Paul was around, and a lot of the old timer people were there. It was pretty much volunteers, and you had to depend on someone to show up. Paul, you could pretty much depend if he was there, he would show up. He ran the ambulance pretty regular. He ran the ambulance with Barbara Head and Floyd Head, and then lots of times, sometimes you needed another ambulance. You could pretty much depend on Paul if he was there. He would show up. Paul, if there was a call where you had to stay late or something, he would miss work, and he would call in and stay there. Paul helped, I would say, bring the fire department into the modern times. In about 1991, he became the training officer of the fire department, and then set and managed the training of the fire department and the records through the State Firemen's and Fire Marshal Association to see that people were certified. Paul was up on the board of directors and helped, I would say, bring one of the modern day fire trucks into the fire department, a 1991 F800 with the automatic transmission and that. Before that, the fire department had probably the newest and best truck they had was a 1959 Maxim that Bernie Andrews had gotten from New York. And then we had a hodgepodge of 1959 trucks, one that came from the city of New Braunfels, then we had one that was full of tar. Well, a lot of times when you have a volunteer fire department, fighting fires is not for everyone. But we had a lot of women in the fire department that they didn't want to fight fire all the time. But out here in the rural area, you got to shuttle water. Paul taught most of them how to drive. He taught them in the 1959 Maxim. And then when they went to take their test, of course, the Ford was automatic, but we need to leave it in the area just in case you have fire. That 1988 tanker, which is a pretty new truck that was built, and he would take a lot of people to go get their driver's test in New Braunfels. One thing is definitely, dude, because Paul's had his driving skills of, doing his volunteer driving for the Red Cross and stuff. But every person that Paul Delmas took to go do their driving test, they all passed. I think this world was a much better place, and this community was a much better place with Paul Delmas sitting here. Not only did he give to his community, but he gave to his country as a Marine. So I could go on all day, but I think I won't bore you because most of y'all know he had a good heart. I can remember one instance, a funny incident. We would go up, the fire department started when he was there and training officer. The fire department would spend money to actually send people to go to Texas A&M to go training, And I can remember me and Floyd Head and Paul, we went on a weekend training school up at Brayton Field at Texas A&M, and we rented a motel room. And Paul and Floyd Head, they slept in the bed there, and I slept down on the floor in the deal. So, but we was, but I can remember, Paul gave, and then after that he would go, and we would send people up there, and he would go. Paul was definitely a pioneer, I would say, in setting the fire department out here towards the straight direction of into what we got the modern day firefighters of today, and we built like fire trucks and stuff like that, and he would help build those things. So yes, Paul is definitely going to be missed. Especially, I live right down the street from him, so is definitely missed driving by there. So anyway.
I'm Beth from the Activity Center. I didn't know Paul in his younger days, but I heard a lot of stories.
From him?
He told a lot of stories, but I will tell you this. If you did not know, Paul was a ladies' man. He liked the ladies. And he would be the keyboard warrior at night, and we would receive these random gifts that he would send to all of the staff at the Activity Center. And it was always interesting because we never knew what size he thought we actually were. But he would send us these shirts and just different things like that. So it was always a running joke whenever we would get a gift from Paul, what we were going to receive, the size, what animal he thought we liked, because sometimes we got, shirts with cats on them, puppies, birds, we just got a little bit of everything. One time he sent us, 20 pounds of nuts?
Yes, pecans. And
Pecans,
crackers.
yep, he said.
And crackers.
And every sort of cracker that you could possibly think of, because he wasn't sure what our taste was. So he made sure that we had everything. But he was a very giving man. He always sent in donations, and even when he wasn't able to come to the center anymore, he would call and make donations. And whenever he got a chance, whether it was someone bringing him or if he was able to drive himself, he would stop by and see us. But he was a very generous man, a very kind soul. You could definitely tell that he did have a heart, and we definitely miss that center and all of Yes, he was our personal bank for a long time.
He would be sitting there and they would call. He would go to the bank, you get $1,000, ones, 5s, 10s.
That's
And I'm like,
bingo money.
Dad, what are you doing that for? Because the senior center will call because they need change, and I have to get it to them.
Yes, because he would come and play bingo. And so everybody brought in their 20s, and we would have to make change. And he was always our personal little bank. So we never had to go to the bank. So we really missed that. But he was such a great man, and we definitely miss him there. And I'm sure everybody has tons of stories. But that's just one of many of the things that, Paul brought joy to us and those around us. So we'll miss him.
I'll probably have different notes on on your dad there. I'm not actually sure how I met him, whether it was through Jimmy or I met him at one of the motorcycle rallies, because he had a trike at the time. He built it himself. It was a Porsche engine in it. I think it do about 130 and a quarter, in the front end. It was real light, so you had to watch out driving it down the road. It didn't cartwheel on you. But I remember Paul as being a pretty good mechanic and a pretty good carpenter, pretty good plumber, and a pretty good air conditioning man. But the problem was he just never finished anything. He'd been working on, my wife wouldn't ride a bike, so he said, I'll build you a trike. Okay. Let me give you $1,700 down on it to get started. Well, 20 years later, he's still building it, and she's passed away about 7 years ago, so you might as well keep the trike. But to his credit, I never said anything to him. One day he shows up at the house. He had one of his lady friends drive him over because he couldn't drive anymore. And he came over to give me $1,700. He says, Paul, what are you doing? I don't want that. I wrote it off years ago. I didn't remember it. No, you gotta keep it coming. I took the lady aside and drove him out here. Says, listen, I can't take this money. You take it and give it back to him. Say, oh, no, I'll get in trouble. Okay, well, that was Paul. So he was what I would say, okay, I just turned 82. He's probably one of the few people I could call a real friend. And I just lost another one I went to grade school with up in Michigan. But Paul always could make me laugh. And I'd ride my bike over there sometimes and always have a cigar for him. We went fishing down in Mexico a couple of times, had a great time. I brought a few pictures of those trips down there. And every year we made our annual pilgrimage to the coast. And we camped out on the beach with anywhere from a dozen to 75 men and their sons. And he was always out there cooking, always cooking. And she said she never saw him catch a fish, so I brought a picture with a fish. But that was in Mexico. Maybe that don't count. I don't know. But anyways, Paul, he was a good friend of mine, and he loved my wife, Maggie, because she was in the Lotus Volunteer Fire Department. And for 13 years, she was an EMT. Before that, she was the smallest person in the age, about 5'1". So guess who got the nozzle of the hose? Rip her all over the place. So I said, no, enough of that stuff. So she went and got to be an EMT, and so she went on midnight runs all the time. But Paul, I'm going to miss him. I know everybody here will too. But I probably miss him just a little bit more than most. I could go on, but the sun's going down, so I'll let somebody else take the floor. But anyways, he was a great guy, and I love him so.
Hey, I'm John Snodgrass, and I got to know Paul right here at Greg and Melinda's property. Now Kyle runs it, and Kyle's here. And it was because there was a world-class senior woman shooter, and her name was Marissa Hogan, and she was world-known, and she had her own steel challenge match, and her assistant was Paul. So after renewing a CHL license out here in 2004 or so, I asked Greg, I said, Greg, I need to shoot more. And he knew I was out here just burning ammo and saving up cartridge or empty shells to reload. He said, well, you need to try Marissa's match. And that's kind of where I got to know Paul. And I'll tell you, Marissa was hugely supported by him. Anytime she had a plumbing leak or something in her house, he'd call me up and we'd go over and get her fixed up. But more than that, I think what Ivan told you all, he was a good friend. And friends are people that you can laugh with. And I can tell you, I'm a healthier person now. I think laughing makes you healthy. And I can tell you a lot of stories about Paul. But the fireman was just speaking, mentioned that they spent the night in a hotel going to A&M while I was in industry, and I've been to that fire school. But I was fortunate because when Paul took over the match after Marissa's health waned, he says, John, we need to go get our range officer certificates. And they've got a school in Austin. And he says, I'll drive and we'll split the room. So we both had a bed, but I can tell you, there's only one person that I know that snores louder than I do, and that's Paul. Never forget that. We laughed about that, but he was somebody that I hold dear. So that's what I have.
I feel your pain. I shared a room with him a few times, too.
Paul was one of those unusual people, and I've only known one or two people like him in my life, who could cuss you up one side, down the other, call you every single name, and at the end you said thank you. Absolutely said thank you to him, so that's how I remember it.
He's awesome.
And with that, I'm done.
Gosh, for a long time when they were out here. And this, right here, this bench, because it was his favorite spot, speak to my other sisters that my dad had at different times of his life. There's been approximately 25 kids that my dad has taken through his house and his home. Not all that he adopted and he raised. Like I said, I was stumped on his porch. My mom said, you're going to stay here. He's going to take care of you because I was a hellion. But when I got to him, I wasn't, because we had horses and talked military stuff, and we did a lot of stuff together. But in that time, he taught me a lot of stuff about life. And he taught me not to fear some of the things that I had feared at that time in my life. He fixed it. He has taken many kids through foster, from big brothers, big sisters. You know, they all went through his house. I have some pictures of some of them. I met Diane. She's on here. That was his first daughter, born, literally his daughter by birth. And I didn't meet her until 5 years ago. So it's been really interesting getting to know her. He has 3 other daughters. Well, one had passed. One I don't know very well because she never stayed around much around the ranch, and Brenda and I used to be on the ranch, and we fought like cats and dogs because everybody wanted Dad's attention. And I rode horses. She traced around with Scotty and Jimmy on motorcycles. So, and he did a lot. I mean, I sit here and I'm going through stuff, and we're talking, and I'm finding out stuff for his first 30 years that I knew nothing about. And then the 55 years I've been with him, he's been a fireman, an EMT, a Marine, teaching at the gun range. He used to ride in the fire trucks as Santa Claus and he would go to people who couldn't get out. And he would go to their house to take pictures with Santa. He would tell people, I'm going to do extra Santa, and he'd find out where, or they would come there and he'd do pictures with dogs. You know, the senior center, I took me almost 8 years after my mom passed to get him to go to the senior center. And then once he got there, that was one of his favorite places. I mean, he enjoyed being there. He enjoyed bingo. He enjoyed fighting with this one lady. I can't remember her name. Iris, yeah. He liked fighting with Iris. But he would fight with them, but he was always laughing. It wasn't like he would come home and, be nasty or anything like that. He was always really nice. But, check the ground. Sorry. So that's just my memories of him. I'm learning other things from other people, and that's what I like. Like, I even brought pictures of him when they're in Mexico. He used to talk about Mexico, but like Sturgis, I always wanted to go to Sturgis with him, and he kept telling me, daughters don't go to Sturgis. I'm like, why not? And he's like,
somebody's daughter's there.
I know, that's what I said. Like that. But he was like, because I won't be able to have the fun I had. I'm like, really? You and Mom been together 38 years. What kind of fun are you going to have? You're an old man. But, so it was kind of nice in that sense. But it's nice talking to other people and finding out things about him that I didn't know, or that I kind of knew, but now I know more of. Does that make sense? But I think he was an incredible man. He was my hero. But anyway, I have these things up here for people if they'd like them. They're called Forget-Me-Nots. My sister-in-law made them. They're just a thing for my dad, and that because I don't hand out flyers, so I thought these would be cool. He take extra for senior center.
live in West Virginia, Blue Ridge Mountains, Shenandoah River. Life is old there, older than the trees, younger than the mountains, growing like a breeze. Country roads take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, Mountain Mama, take me home. Country roads, all my memories gather round her. Miner's lady, stranger to blue water. Dark and dusty, painted on the sky. Misty taste of moonshine, teardrop in my eye. Country road